name is Alina. I work as a TV producer for a company called Smoke and Mirrors. I am responsible for adapting TV commercials for local markets. And by local markets, I mean any territory in Europe, any territory in the rest of the world actually, but the stuff I work on is mostly for Western and Eastern Europe. So I am assigned a specific brand. The brand is Mondelez, and it owns products such as Oreo, Milka, chocolate, Tuck biscuits, all kinds of stuff. And I adapt commercials that were shot for these specific brands for different markets. The way it works is that a agency will shoot a commercial, will then make the edit, and will then share the final masters with us, which either myself or my colleagues will be responsible for receiving those materials, making sure that we have all the materials, that we have video and audio splits for it. And once we have those materials, people in a different department who are called account managers, who are they're the first point of contact of the client being a representative of Mondelez. Those guys, they send us, the producers, a brief. A brief is a breakdown of what the client wants for us to do with the materials that we have just received, or the ones that we already have, or maybe they want us to work on something we created before. So briefs can vary. That brief will have an outline of what client wants and what us as producers, what we as producers, what we need to do. Then, as a producer, I'm responsible for, well, reading the brief thoroughly, finding any pitfalls or finding any issues that might come up, raise those questions with the account manager early on, so they can go back to the client and check certain things that have concerned me. And in the meantime, I'm responsible for getting in touch with editors. They're also called operators. Flame operators. Flame is the software that they work with. I'm responsible for checking with them how long this particular job, this brief, will take for us to create, for us to execute. And depending on that, and also on how many versions we need to make of a particular commercial, and any additional deliveries we need to make for online. Depending on all of this, I need to create a cost estimate and add it to system that is then generates the estimate for this job. Then at this stage, my job is kind of done. I'm waiting for those costs to be approved. Once the costs are approved, that's when I am responsible for briefing the editors of what they need to do, and that varies from, say, changing this text in the commercial from English to Bulgarian, or it can actually vary up to the point where we need to change the edit a little bit, that we need to change packs, meaning, for example, this commercial has a purple pack of this product, we need to change it to a green one, because in that particular market they sell this product in a green pack, not in a purple pack. So the level of complexity varies from project to project, but obviously I will know about this complexity prior to cost approval, because I would have spoken to the editor asking them how long the job will take. And then, yeah, once editors do the tweaks, their side of things, I also need to brief audio engineers of creating a sound mix that is mixed to spec of the territory where the commercial will go on air. And then I have to send this off for approval to the account manager, who will forward it to the client. And hopefully it will be approved from the first try. The very first edit will be approved, and then I need to deliver the commercial to a third party, which will then distribute it to TV stations. So in a way, well, that's it. That's that's how what the job implies. And of course, it can vary from brief to brief, but in a nutshell, that's what it is. So the office I work in is in London. I know that there are also Smoke and Mirrors offices in New York, Shanghai, and Amsterdam. I think our office, I'm not sure it's the largest one. I think it is, because it was the first one overall, and it's almost like central hub of Smoke and Mirrors. And I think we are around 100 people, but that's just Smoke and Mirrors. As I said, Smoke and Mirrors is part of a bigger company called Williams Lee Tag, and they have offices all over the world as well, and I think there are like 3,000 employees they have around the world. But yeah, I mostly work with a group of, let's say, 10 people, and I haven't really acquainted with many people on my floor even. I've started recently at this job, and yeah, I still run into so many new people around the building, so it's quite big. My career in TV began fairly recently. I started as a production assistant in a company called Viasat Broadcasting Group, which is, well, it's quite famous in Russia, I understand. Viasat owns such channels as TV1000, TV1000 Action, TV1000 Russian Kino. It used to belong to a Scandinavian company called MTG. Now it changed. It's called Viasat World, but nevertheless, those channels are still owned by Viasat. So as a production assistant, I worked there for, well, 2.5 years. That includes when the company changed a little bit, and I had a slight promotion that was skewed more towards management. So I became senior production assistant, but in reality, there were not many changes to my duties. So that was my first step into the professional world. Before joining Viasat, I did a degree in film and TV production at University of Westminster. Between graduation and starting at Viasat, I was doing odd jobs here and there as a runner, or assisting some of my friends with filming music gigs or that type of stuff, working on some short films. I did work experience at BBC Comedy. In a way, I always wanted to work in film, but somehow life mostly put me into TV. And right now, what I do is, it's called more TV post-production, because I'm not actually filming anything or I'm not involved with filming footage, but I'm working with footage that was created. So yeah, post-production. In terms of my experience of getting to where I am right now, I'd say that getting a degree in film and TV production did help me. I've learned the terminology and became just more confident with what I'm getting into. But then the reality was that once I actually got a job at Viasat, it was not similar at all to what I studied, because what I studied was film and TV production, but then where I started was broadcasting. Right now, actually, looking back at what I studied, still my work at Smoke and Mirrors is very different from what I learned. experience, professional experience in media industry is invaluable. It's in some jobs it's maybe even more important than education. I'd say that the best thing is a combination of both, but I have a live example of a previous colleague of mine. We just changed companies, but he didn't do a degree. I'm not sure if he went to college to study specifically media or film, but then we ended up in the same positions the same amount of years later. It's just that our paths were different. But now he's a promo producer and I'm a TV producer, which our jobs are slightly different, but in terms of the level in the hierarchy in the industry, we are on the same levels. So I can't say whether getting a degree or not getting a degree will boost your chances of getting into a very big position quickly. One of the things I do advise for any interview is to do your homework, read about the company that you're going to be interviewed with, because quite surprisingly people skip that step, and it really doesn't impress the interviewer when they ask a potential employee a question about their company and the employee has no idea who he or she might be joining, or actually this might creep up during the conversation. So for my very first interview with Viasat for production assistant job, I did go online and read about their company, where the businesses operate and what they do. I realized that they don't just do broadcasting, but they also produced not electric appliances, but the satellite dishes and some equipment for military actually. And I did mention it in my interview when I was asked what I know about Viasat, what I knew about Viasat. And my reply that I know that you broadcasted these in these territories, but I also had found out that you produce military equipment. That answer I saw that impressed them, because they understood that I did my homework. One of the questions I do hate is where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And it always pops up, because it's good for employer to know what are the plans, what are the interviewees' plans for their future, and if they think about the future at all. For example, for the very first interview, it was a very tricky one, because I had to understand for myself whether I want to be honest and say that, well, actually, in 5 years' time, I would want to be producing my own content for TV, or I want to work in film industry, and quite possibly that would have ruined my chances of getting a position. Or if I should lie, in a way, and say that, oh, I want to work in broadcasting, I see myself as a planner or as a promo producer, in order to please the interviewer, and so they know that you will be a good fit for their company. Another thing that's very important to remember, that the interview is not just for the employer to talk to you and get to know you, but also for you to understand whether you like the environment, whether you like your boss, whether you want to stay in this particular company. And of course, you need to ask questions as well, not just for the employer to ask you questions. At my very first job interview, that's something that didn't really cross my mind, because I just wanted to get a job. So in a way, it wasn't really applicable. But for my current position, I've already had certain experience and I knew that my references would be great for a job. I already had certain amount of expectations, and I already knew that I'm used to good working environment, that I want to work in a good team. So I already had certain things that I expected, and certain things that I wanted to get for myself from this job. So I did ask questions to the employer. I actually used an article that was sent to me by my friend, which was written by Ivanka Trump, 5 questions to ask at your job interview. And in a way, they show the employer that you are thinking outside the box and you do care for yourself, and you actually are measuring whether this company is good and suitable for yourself. So the questions I did ask, one of them was, what do you expect me to achieve in the first 90 days? And I saw that my future boss, she was quite surprised by it, but then she did have to tell me what they expected of me. Sorry, it's getting darker. One of the other things that I'd like to talk about are the skills that you do need as a candidate for a job, media job. So for entry-level position, you need to be enthusiastic. And this is something that has annoyed me forever, because what does it mean? You need to be enthusiastic. But apparently, sorry about the noise, but apparently people do sometimes roll into interviews not showing any interest or anything for the industry, for the company, for the particular job. So really you need to show that you are curious, that you want to learn, that you're keen, that you want to develop. Don't be overly enthusiastic and just be like a yappy dog jumping on one spot, because that can also be a turn off.